Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for Stage 4 of the Vuelta a España. We have maybe another sprint from Susa, Italy. We cross into France, finishing in Voiron. And just like yesterday, we can see the Alps. We can see some big climbs. They do go over some high passes today, but no savage climbs. But this is one of those stages that I really... I'm very surprised by the outcome. I'm very surprised by how the peloton approached it and certain teams. And yeah, I'm really, really, really surprised because it's 207 kilometers. I think it's the longest stage in the race.
Yeah.
We do the Exiles Pass, 5.7 Ks, 5.6%. That's out of neutral. So it gives a platform for strong rouleur climbers to jump, like a Bruno Armirel. You then have Col de Montgenèvre, 8.4K, 6%. That goes up to 1,850 meters. And there's also a 3K, 7.5% section in there. Descent, short valley. Then the Lotera, which is 14Ks, 4%. I know it's not hard, but like there's 8Ks there at 5.5%. It goes over 2,000 meters. And I think the key for me is how this sequences together, in that if break formation's hard on the Puerto Exiles, and even if you can put fatigue into a sprinter there. On the Montgenèvre, you can drop a sprinter because it literally has a 3K 8% section. And then if you continue in that short valley and then you're pacing on 5% at altitude when they're already off the wheel, it's a hard day for a sprinter to come back. I know it's a long valley, but like, what did you think would happen in break formation today?
Well, first of all, I'd expect quite a few people to want to be in the breakaway in the first place. Because stage with this hard of a first half, you'd argue that a breakaway could potentially take it. But more importantly, in this first half of the race, on the Exiles Montgenèvre Lotera trio, I expect Little Trek to make the race hard. We said it numerous times already in the last couple of stages, that if you look at their team composition, they don't have a full sprint train here. And they chose to instead go for a team that can make these type of stages hard in the climbs. So whether it's Gebreigzabir or Verona, etc., they make these climbs harder to put other sprinters, pure sprinters like Philipsen, maybe Nathan Vernon, those two riders, try and make it harder for them to get over these climbs and try and make them suffer throughout so that either they drop on the climbs or they're more fatigued by the time we hit the sprint at the end of the stage. Even though it's quite a long run in from the top of the Lotera to the finish line to potentially recover for these riders, but if you make it really hard, you can potentially drop them. So that's what I look at when it comes to Little Trek here. The downside to that team composition is, in the sprint, you're very limited when it comes to your lead out.
Yes, but Little Trek having no lead out to me makes it even more imperative that they put... Because this team Little Trek has brought is in, like, if Peak Wout van Aert had this team at some Grand Tours, he would have won 12 reduced bunch sprints. This Trek team is incredibly strong, but they don't have a lead out. Like, in all due respect to Søren Kragh and Dan Holer, but they're not pure natural lead out riders like a Plancart and Ricard, although Plancart makes a mistake today. And I know sometimes you think, okay, you drop them, it's 130 Ks left. How are we going to use our team to keep them behind for 130 Ks? The answer is, it won't just be you. You have to... Who else will help you? Movistar will help you. If you're Movistar, Benji, and Philipsen and Vernon are dropped, I would pace so that Aular can sprint against Pedersen.
Exactly.
I would pace if I was Movistar. If I was Q365 and I have Fabio Kristen, I would pace.
Yeah.
Teams will help.
I'm not sure Fabio Kristen has received the stamp of approval as like the only leader on these stages for Q46.5 though. Like,
but he's in my Velo Games team, so I'm trying to wish into existence.
Actually, they did
he
go
top
for
10,
him today.
you bastard.
So full credits, you got some points there. That being said, the way the stage started, we've got some break formation. I gotta be honest, was it just me or they didn't show the entire stage today, right? On TV?
It wasn't televised, but I was watching the live ticker
Yeah.
on And I was like, 5 guys in a break from the same teams as before, as if it's some sort of procession sprint stage TV breakaway. I was just really confused because I just think Pedersen had zero chance to win a full group sprint. It's like not zero, but very low based on what we've seen this year. And without Sturven, without Vacek, without Consoni, it then makes it really, really difficult. So, and I listened to the interview of Jasper Philipsen before the stage. He thought he was going to get dropped. Like they asked him, the Vuelta organizers haven't made this first stage easy for you. And he was like, yeah, Jesus, like this one's going to be, it had 3,000 meters of climbing in like 80 Ks.
Yep.
And he was like, I'm going to get dropped and then we'll see what happens.
But these breakaway forms, and it's not a dangerous breakaway per se. It's a breakaway of 5 riders that includes Louis Vervaeke, Sean Quinn, Joel Nicolau as well, Camille Bonneau and Mario Aparicio from Burgos. So those 5 riders go up the road and they start fighting it out for KOM points. They start fighting it out, and when it comes to the first KOM, which is the lightest, I think it's a cat tree climb, so only 3 points available. That is taken by Nicolau. He already had 2 points in that classification, so he's already flirting with the lead already. Vervaeke takes the second climb, and Quinn takes the third climb. But as a combination of those 3, Nicolau was the most consistent, plus the 2 points he already had, and he takes the KOM jersey basically after those 3 climbs. So those are the standings. And Patrick is showing a mug right now from our Lanterne Rouge shop or merch shop, and it says, "Go to get a coffee, Benji. I'm gonna go for a rant." So he's now showing the other side. And what are you trying to say? Podcast listeners have no clue what you're doing. You keep forgetting we have a podcast.
I keep forgetting this is an audio medium of disseminating media. No, I just felt
no rants about pizza anymore. The Italian muff was at my house last night.
I gotta stop letting Benji wind me up because it's bad for my health. Like it's counteracting all the join and pillar performance good stuff. Is Benji winding me up about food? Even my mother was going off. She's like, Australia has great coffee. I was like, yeah, I know. I tried to tell him. He wouldn't listen.
Mate, I've got no clue. I don't drink coffee.
He doesn't drink coffee.
I'm rage-baiting you at this point.
Why was I putting it all on Little Trek? And then you might be listening and thinking, okay, well, there's 20 other teams in the race. Why didn't they try to get in this break, Benji, on these climbs? Why was it just these teams? And I think the answer is when the whole peloton has an expectation that the strongest team that will control will do something. And so everyone thinks Little Trek nuke, no point Bruno Amiral, Ivo Oliveira, Marc Soler, these sort of, there's no point jumping in the break because Trek are going to nuke. And then when Trek don't do it, everyone's like, hold on. And then you have this unintended consequence that we're now in this valley. The break gets caught. When it gets caught at 80 Ks to go, I was like, why? And then it was just bizarre. It's just a bizarre stuff. I feel bad for the people who, like, the breakaways just get killed so early.
Yeah, that is true. But I'll be honest, at this point, I was looking at the ticker. I didn't even turn on the TV yet. But like you said, breakaway gets called way too early with about 70 kilometers to go. We're not even at the small hill yet. The bump before the intermediate sprint. Haven't even arrived there. So we've got other people that are like, why is this breakaway caught? And then Aparicio, I'm pretty sure, tries to go again to try and form another breakaway, which doesn't work. Then we get towards the hill, we get over the hill, whatever. We get towards the actual, Sinue Fernandez of Burgos then tries as well, gets caught. We get to the intermediate sprint. And the intermediate sprint this time, that's an intriguing part. Sure, the break was caught early. It didn't seem to me like it was for the intermediate sprint, because it was way too early before the intermediate sprint for that to be the only cause. Sure, they I don't know. Like, they weren't trucking either to close down the breakaway. I don't know. But intermediate sprint came up, and as a consequence, because there's no breakaway riders, the points were available for the peloton, which makes the intermediate sprint more enjoyable to watch, because there's 5 riders that can take points here. And were you surprised by the fact that Philipsen wasn't trying to get those points? I'm asking that.
I think he's given up on green. I think he's given up on green. Or he just wants to do what Vos did on stage 1 of the Tour de France, where, he's already won a stage. Yeah, I was surprised then. I think he's going to abandon.
You think he's going to do like the the 10-day Cipollini and go for the next flat stage, which I think is on stage 9-ish.
I think he's going to abandon on the first rest day, yeah.
2 Grand Tours, 2 weeks of racing in total, maximum.
Yeah, but he can do like Super 8 and some other, and Paris Tour and these other races.
Super 8.
What? That's what it's
Sounds
called,
so
right?
silly and Flemish.
Isn't that that's the name,
it
right?
does. Yeah, the Super 8 Classic.
I'm now confused. I feel like I've done something wrong.
You haven't done anything wrong.
I was, David Gaudu tried to, and Chicane went for it. They do take the points. So Vingegaard not going for green jersey apparently today. I think yesterday he just thought there were bonifications in play. Armorel jumps. He tries to get across because actually the peloton hadn't got into drag race mode because they were like kind of chilling because there was no break. And so Armorel goes, he gets 45, 50 seconds. Then they get into color order at 20 Ks to go. He gets brought back by the GC teams. And I am telling you, listen up. And this isn't Aussie bias because I think there wasn't a bigger hater of his transfer back in 2022. So when I tell you, you better believe it. Bora are positioning Jai Hindley like they know something. Like they are driving him on these sprint stages with him being protected till 5Ks to go. And with these sort of riders, these sort of pure climbers, and same with Felix Gaulle, I like to look at their results in stages which don't really suit them. And then if you see, Hindley's like, he's like 10th in that kick yesterday. He's like top, I don't know where he came on the mountain finish that Vingegaard won. I think he did pretty well there. Well, then when you see that, it's like, what's going on? He might be in, yeah, that says to me he's in pretty good shape. And then when the real climbs come, he can be dangerous. So I think Bora confident in Hindley.
But ironically, Hindley's also the kind of rider that the best Grand Tours he's ridden, he washed it in the race before, if I recall correctly. So it is a pattern. Yeah. But then again, it could also mean that one day we look at a Dauphiné, we say, Hindley's shit. He's going to be rocking high watts at the Tour de France, and then he does nothing. That's also the downside of the theory. But he's already performing in week 1, and that's a slight confirmation.
It's like, a bit shit in the race before, good at some point in the season. Tirreno, he was good. And then results where if he does podium, you look back at week 1, you're like, it was obvious he was in good shape. It was obvious. Look at his results on... And that's to me what it feels like. And the way Bora are riding also suggests that they think he's in good shape. So just watch out for Hindley. There's a crash with George Bennett, Jay Vine at the back.
Did we talk about the result of the intermediate sprint?
Yeah, Pedersen won it ahead of Vernon and Stewart.
Correct. And Ciccone also is there, but I think he was leading out or helping Pedersen more, but he also took 13 points. So maybe we'll talk about that after today's stage as well. But you're right, there was a crash with Bennett, also a Lotto rider, an Ineos rider, which I'm not sure who it was either, but they were crashing on the side of the road. Vine crashed as a secondary effect to it. The peloton behind them was braking, and Vine just rode into the back of someone else and also hit the floor, but he was on the bike pretty quickly, shake out the head, so obviously not too happy that he crashed like that, but he seemed relatively fine. But we were heading towards a sprint, and in the last 4 kilometers, you mentioned it to me while we were watching, there's like this very relaxed run-in towards a Vuelta sprint relative to other Grand Tours. It's like everybody's chilling, the siesta's still happening, there were about 3 to 2.5 kilometers to go, everybody's like, okay, we should try and get into position now.
It was unbelievable.
So
It was unbelievable. So I think it was the 5K to go rule today because there was an abhorrent amount of road furniture in the final 5Ks. Campenaerts is on the front with Vingegaard, and everyone's like, all right, why burn your lead outs? We've barely got any lead outs here. Just sit on Visma, and then when they're finished, we'll do our own lead out. Just freeload off them. It's what Alpecin did really well on Philipsen's first win. Campenaerts goes through 5Ks to go. He starts literally not pedaling.
Yeah.
No one else comes past him. Everyone just keeps sitting behind him. I'm like, it gets to 4Ks to go. I'm like, does anyone want to start a lead out?
And then finally, we start seeing some trains move up, and we've got Ineos on one side, Arkea on the other side. Arkea is not necessarily the team you'd expect to be leading the charge into the final sprint here either, But Ineos with Ben Turner, I guess, is a potential option. Lil Trek was moving up and IPT on the other side. So Lil Trek was moving up on the side of Arkea and IPT on the side of Ineos. And then at a certain point, you pointed at it earlier, there was this middle island on the road. And we see one rider from Groupama FDG who are going for from P35 to P4 or 5 into the peloton, passing almost everybody, David Gaudu. And he's actually relevant in today's stage because he's on the same time in GC as Vingegaard as this race began, which means that the tiebreaker for the red jersey happens every day because they're still on the same time at the end of today. And that tiebreaker is the sum of their stage positions of every single stage up to now. And before this stage, Vingegaard was 8 spots better. So at the end of today's stage, Gaudu had to get 8 spots ahead of Vingegaard, even though they're in the same group, just 8 places above him in the stage positions, and then Gaudu would take the red jersey. So that's an interesting point to mark out, but it was with about 1.5 kilometers right that Alpecin started moving up to, right?
Yeah, it was Alpecin, but Alpecin got a small unit here, so it's Ricard, Plancart. They're really like, they use Ricard as the guide, and normally in like a shoulder press sprint, like a real big boy flat sprint, you see Ricard last man. But actually, I think with the absence of, I don't know where Riesebeck was. He might be, where's Riesebeck finishing the results?
He didn't look great the other day, so I assume he might be sick or something.
I think he's sick because he's on 8:50 today, and I think I mentioned it yesterday or the day before. He finished way back.
Yeah.
So normally, yeah, he finished on 18 minutes yesterday. He's better than that, so I think he must be crook. But the reason they use Ricard second last lead out is because he's the most reliable guide. And then because he's got no one ahead of him, and he's also the big bruiser who can open a gap for them Plancart to do the final lead out. And with the absence of, there's no other lead outs apart from Stewart, you don't need the massive horsepower to do the final lead out of a Van Aert, a Van der Poel, a Van Poppel. Plancart can get that job done like he did on stage, the first sprint stage. They're looking good. Mikhail Kwiatkowski, I mean, this sprint was all about energy conservation, road furniture. I mean, I think Casper Van Uden had to, normally we'd criticize a guy going onto the sidewalk. I think that picnic rider had no choice.
Yeah.
Like, they had to go onto the sidewalk to not crash. The road furniture here was in and out, in and out, in and out. Crazy to see in a Grand Tour final 4Ks, frankly. Turns, curves, a Burgos rider very nearly crashes. Thank God he held it up, so shout out to him because he saved a lot of people a nasty shower this evening. And yeah, Kwiatkowski's guiding Turner and just saving him energy. You're like, oh, they're in front early. And they were, but when there's so many corners, you've kept Turner fresh, you've got no one fighting him, and then when Kwiatkowski's done, you can use a corner that's coming up and just put him onto the Israel Premier Tech lead out that comes, or the Alpecin lead out that comes.
But that is an important factor because the guidance and insight and the way that sprinter then, like a Ben Turner, chooses a wheel and knows when to switch wheel when necessary in the last 1.5 kilometers is also important, because I want to put it towards a different sprinter here. Mess Pedersen is in a relatively good position going into the last 1.5 kilometers and even into the last kilometer. And in that last kilometer, he's on one side of the road in the wheel of an Arkea rider and a Picnic Postinel rider. I was going to say DSM for some reason, in those two wheels. And those two riders are leadouts. He stayed in the wheel of those two riders until 300 meters to go, where there's a corner to the left. And in that corner, he waits so long in the wheel of those riders that those leadouts are done working. They're going off the front, and they're technically blocking him just before the corner. So Pedersen should have seen coming that those leadouts would end up going off the front and should have maneuvered to a different wheel by now. And that is where Mess Pedersen goes from P5, 6, whatever in this peloton to P13, P10 out of competition in Narnia. So it's not just that Pedersen's lead out here was imperfect. Yes, if he has someone to pilot him here, then he might not be in that position where he has to choose those moves. But his moves that he chose himself in the last 1.5 is what put the nail in the coffin.
I agree. It's just navigating those corners has not been his strong suit this year, or like he's not flowed effortlessly through the peloton in the big bunch sprints. He's more like overpowered punchers remaining after an extremely hard stage. That's what happened in the Giro on a number of occasions, and that's not the case here. So,
and at Paris-Nice, happened the same as today.
Yep. And Provence, did he do?
Yep.
Yeah. Provence, he lost a couple of sprints, and then he dominated on the hard stage. He just went solo. So, not looking good for him, and Trek worked all day for it. But let's get to the final lead out. So, to be honest, I thought Philipsen was going to win by a bike length again. I mean, Ricard's done a good job. He pulls off. Plancart's done it perfectly. At 500, he doesn't go. He's patient. He waits. No one else has a lead out, so he's patient. He slides up. 400, 350, so late. Plancart opens his lead out. And there's a chicane here. So they're kind of going diagonally. They go from one barrier side at 250 to the other barrier side at because the barriers are moving in and out. It's not a straight line finish, but it's also not a bend. It is that you can ride through in a straight line, but the barriers are moving. And because Plancart starts his lead out so late and so fresh, he doesn't open the barrier side early enough. He goes diagonally through the chicane as if it's still 300 to go, but it's actually on the exit of that chicane, it's 125 to go. And he hasn't opened barrier. And I see as well. Now I look at it in the overhead shot. The barriers come in exactly when Philipsen was about to jump the inside of Plancart with 150 to go. And he gets blocked/boxed by his own lead-out man. He says, open. Plancart doesn't open early enough. He goes back to the barrier. Philipsen has to restart his sprint. Turner jumps him from behind and wins by a bike length. Philipsen, I think this has nothing to do with his legs. Correct. I think this is all him getting boxed in. And I almost think Plancart was so fresh. He just didn't open the barrier early enough. If he does, I think Philipsen wins.
So just to be clear, theoretically speaking, in a textbook lead-out, the lead-out would be ahead of Philipsen at the barriers, and with whatever meters to go towards the finish line, that lead-out would try to move away from the barriers to open up space for Philipsen to launch before someone else can box Philipsen in.
Yes.
So I fully agree, it's on Plancart for not opening the barrier set up quickly enough, but it also gives credit to Turner that he may or may not have made the decision to go a bit earlier than he maybe would have hoped for. Then again, it's 125 meters to go,
late.
So you can't go much earlier. You can't go much later than that.
The problem was, Plancart wasn't on a barrier when Philipsen makes the decision to jump to the left side of him. Plancart was going from the right barriers diagonally across the chicane to the left barriers. As he's doing that, Philipsen decides to jump him left so that it is on Plancart. He should have opened the gap to Philipsen. Also because it was very, very late. But I don't know what their plan was opening a side, but normally you open the inside to your sprinter. And in the end, Turner wins. The late call up to the team. He was not supposed to. He was in the Renewy Tour, and then Lucas Hamilton got sick. He got called up to do the race. He now wins his first ever Grand Tour stage. Ahead of Philipsen, Plancart third, which goes to show how late he started his lead out, is that he still finishes third. Vernon fourth, Biermans fifth, Mads Pedersen sixth, Fabio Christen seventh, or Luis Aula eighth, Guillermo Silva ninth, Buratti 10th.
And also, I want to take a look for Gaudu. Gaudu finishes 25th and Vingegaard finishes 42nd. So as a consequence, David Gaudu is the new red jersey after today with the same time on Jonas Vingegaard in second place. So no real changes there. But like you said, Mats Pedersen finished in 6th, losing points again towards Philipsen, but also losing a potential advantage that he can take on these kind of stages on the Vingegaards of the world. Because let's say Vingegaard wins 3 more mountain stages where he takes points as well, or some versatile stage where Vingegaard once again top 5s like the last couple of days, then Vingegaard might get pretty close when it comes to the green jersey as well. Pedersen is in it though after 4 stages. Yeah, Ciccone as well, but I don't think Pedersen will allow Ciccone to go for green, buddy.
No, but Ciccone is going for the intermediate sprints, which Vingegaard isn't doing. He went again today for it.
Yeah, but was it going for it, or was it trying to help Pedersen win the intermediate sprint and then taking points away?
I think it's both. I think, first of all, there were bonus seconds available. Secondly,
Fair.
that's why Godot sprinted for it. Secondly, if Pedersen's not going to win it and Pedersen is going to lose green to a puncher or a climber, better that Ciccone builds up an advantage within the team, taking points, and it takes away more points from someone else who might sprint like Vingegaard. So I think it's almost a threefold reason to make sure, okay, if Pedersen's not going to win this, we make sure Ciccone wins it, not Vingegaard. Anyway, yeah, Pedersen has a 2-point lead over Vernon on 78 points. Philipsen on 75 points. If he won the stage, he would have been ahead. Ciccone on 67. He's only 11 points behind Pedersen, and Vingegaard's only 13 points behind him. There's no points available at the TTT tomorrow, but we've got some mountain stages coming. So let's get in. Yeah, Davigadu takes the red jersey, which is quite cool, but otherwise no changes in GC.
Should we talk about Ben Turner a little bit more? Because I feel like we've gone through a few changes with this man, I would say, because back in the day I saw Turner as the classics guy, tall boy rouleur classics guy, and then was it maybe 2 years ago where he won that random sprint finish in not a Mallorca challenge, but one of those Spanish one-day races in February, where maybe Murcia or something, I don't know for sure which one it was, and that one was a bit of a shady finish with lots of technicality, but it was a similar kind of style finish as today, where it's a hilly uphill kind of vibe. It's not a pure flat sprint. And then we've seen him more transition even more towards having a sprint this year at Paris-Nice, where he was close to winning a sprint against. Did he beat Pedersen, or did Pedersen beat him in that group sprint? Pedersen beat him in that 4-up sprint in Paris-Nice, right?
Yeah, I feel like Tarling and him both sprinted, and Pedersen just dusted them both.
It was not Turner at Paris-Nice.
Yeah, Turner didn't do Paris-Nice. He lost to Christoph in an uphill sprint in Andalusia. Yeah.
Yeah, I was mingling the two together. And we've seen more and more Turner do sprints even at the Giro, where he was competing in a couple of sprints, not necessarily the most competitive rider in it. He got a top 10 here and there. He also got third in a stage on stage 12, which was also a relatively similar parkour as today, I would say. So he's definitely gotten better at sprints. How do we rate it, though? Do we rate it as Ghana level sprints?
I think it's different. How
do we see it?
I think Turner is not like that fast in like a pure sprint.
Yeah.
I think he's got that mongrel dog in him, and he can position really well. And in these hectic sprints where he's maybe a little bit bigger than a lot of the Luis Aulas and Guillermo Silva, like they're not as big. And in Poland, on a very technical course, he was there where Coy and Brennan never got in position. So I think as a classic sprinter who's excellent in positioning, when the overall sprint level comes down a bit, when the stage has been a bit harder and his fitness is better than the pure sprinters like Philipsen, and when it's maybe a little bit uphill, where the speed is lower, and it was a little bit uphill this sprint, and in Poland when he won, it was uphill. And the time Brennan beat him, it was uphill and he came second. Andalusia was second when it was uphill against Christoph after a hard day. I think these are the sort of sprints where he can be competitive. Whereas Ganna, I think, is like a raw power, and actually he doesn't give the impression he wants to get involved in sprints this year.
Exactly. Like yesterday was a different vibe, because that was very technical uphill drag, like a Poggio style finish, like I mentioned yesterday. But today was actually like a proper sprint, and there we see them opting for Turner, just like they did in the earlier stage on stage 1 as well, where Ghana brought Turner up, if I recall correctly. So that's definitely the order of things we've seen at Ineos. But I'm happy to see him win his first Vuelta stage, his first Grand Tour stage in total. Age 26, he's probably going to win another Grand Tour in his career, I would say. I don't know what a Grand Tour stage. Sorry, not a Grand Tour. Well,
that'd be some honest, transformation.
The Tour of Southland is the 4th Grand Tour, and I believe Turner can win it.
He can win a Renewy Tour, I reckon, 1 year. So
yeah, but
the 5th Grand Tour.
Nah, we're not having that shit.
But it's great to see. It's great to see. Like he is 26, but this is his 4th year professional. And he's coming into great shape, and he's been very good.
Why do a shitload of teams send their tier 3, tier 2 sprinter to Renui Tour instead of to the Vuelta, where they can actually compete for Grand Tour stages.
The Renui Tour. I mean, Picnic. I mean, they don't need the points anymore, but Bittner should have been it for the Vuelta.
Yeah, of course.
I know they sent Van Uden, right? But Bittner won a Vuelta stage last year.
Yeah.
Like, didn't he?
I assume it's because Van Uden won a Giro stage that they did that. But these stages fit Bittner more than they do Van Uden.
I mean, Bittner was fucking good in Renui.
Correct?
Like, he still took a lot of UCI points. And listen, Picnic are beyond their post-UCI point. They can be normal again because they're not going to get relegated.
Question. This is a difficult question, though. Arnaud Delis won the last stage and the GC at the Renui Tour. With that level, what could he have achieved at La Vuelta?
Yeah, maybe he could have. I think winning the Renui Tour in that stage is bigger than the Vuelta for him and his
for
team.
Lotto, perhaps as well.
Like, he would have won maybe one of these first 4 stages, I would say, would be my par expectation.
Yeah.
But today, I'd say, would have been a pretty good finish for Delis. But is that bigger than winning Renui in a stage for a Belgian sponsor and a Belgian rider? I'm not sure.
I'm not
it
sure.
is. So
it would be
that's fair
more
enough.
if he starts winning 3 or something and starts becoming competitive for green. But that's not obvious either.
Nah. They need Caden Groves at Albertson.
Yeah,
He'd have
Bingham
green
Girmay
locked
is
up.
one. Where I'm like, why is he at Renui Tour?
That's the thing. There has to be some sprinters that could have been here competing for these sprints. Anyway, tomorrow's stage, we have a team time trial quite late. The 5th stage for a TTT is quite late, and it's also reasonably long. 24 Ks around Figueres. I think they have a flight from France this evening. They're not getting the train, I heard, but Figueres is in the Alt Empordà, which is like the higher Empordà region in the Costa Brava. It's at the sort of the base of the Pyrenees on the way to Andorra, which they'll go to in stage 6. It's just north of Girona. These roads will be very, very familiar for a lot of the riders. And the TTT itself is flat. It's got 2 intermediate time checks at 7.5 Ks and 16.5 Ks, and it's going to be fast. There's a few turns, especially halfway through. There's a technical chicane, but otherwise, it's a power TT. There's no hill to contend with. There's no woke nonsense rules about the first rider setting the time. It's the 4th rider, like always, and I think Ineos are the favourites.
I think so as well. Magnus Sheffield, Ghana definitely being a factor in it. Jungels as well, Kwiatkowski, Turner, those are some pretty strong riders in these time trials. Bernal Rivera are not absolute dog shit, I would say, at being an engine there.
I think Rivera be solid.
I think Langelotti is the weakness for a team time trial, but I guess we'll see in the action what that matters, because at the end of the day, if you have one weaker in between brackets rider for a team time trial, the majority of teams have half a team that can't do a team time trial as well as their best rider.
And he can he's not a GC rider. So if he pulls and he drops halfway through,
how much does it impact Soudal Quickstep, Visma Lease Bike, all the teams that are one rider down, for example? Godus team, Groupama FDG, is missing Guillaume Martin as well, who DNF'd already on stage 2. So all these teams have one rider less.
Go faster.
That will make them go faster.
Yeah, because they don't have to wait for Martin.
That is true. Axel Zangler, was that a big factor for Visma though?
I think being a rider down makes a big difference when it's only when 4 riders set the time, because now you can only drop 3. Before you could drop 4, and so you had one more expendable character. And you could have just Zangler can do a death pull and then be gone for the last 10 Ks, and you keep trucking. Now you got to be more conservative with the pacing of your 7 riders, because you still need the 4th rider to set the time. So I think it does make a difference. That's typically why a team time trial is in the opening stage, so that teams aren't a rider down.
But UAE Team Emirates is a team that when I look at the roster, it shouts they should be pretty good at the team time trial, but for some reason, I don't expect it. I feel like I've seen too many team time trials from UAE in the last couple of years that were meh.
In 2024, this UAE team, we would have said this is a done deal. They're winning this TTT.
Yeah.
and Paris, Valencia, they were the heavy favourites. I know that Trek Super Rouleur squad was the one that beat them, but I think it'll be close. I mean, this is still Almeida, Ayuso, Bjerg, Grosjean, Novak, Oliveira, Soler, Vine. You don't have any 55-kilo diminutive climber. You have multiple TT champions in Vine and Bjerg. You have the Austrian TT champion in Grosjean, and Novak's a truck. Oliveira he's won the Portuguese time trial championships. He's like that sort of track rider is excellent in a TTT.
I fully agree, but being the Portuguese NCITT is necessarily the biggest emblem of being the best time trialist in the world. But
in 2020.
He's a good rider for it. Okay, in 2020. Well, is it as broad as one of the other ones?
I don't even know.
Almeida won a couple as well,
I think, yeah.
Rafael Reis, maybe, at a certain point.
Asterisk.
I don't know if he did. It has to. I'm not sure, actually. But is there an outsider team that we're not looking at? Like, Jayco is usually the team that kind of shows up and has skills at these team time trial events. But when I look at their team, I don't shout team time trial leader. Like, Volldager and Gamper are not the beacons of team time trials for me.
Like, they got some trucks in there, but then you got Bowman, Volldager, Dunbar, very small riders. Do they want... I think Dunbar's lost time on GC, though, so they don't have to wait for him. I think... Yeah, I mean, Groupama FDJ will be triply motivated because of the red jersey. So they want to beat Visma and then stay close because then they can keep the red jersey for another day. And they do have Kung. They do have Remy Cavagna.
Is Trek underrated? Hole, Andersen, Pedersen, Verona. Cicconi's not terrible. I don't know.
Meh.
Not feeling it for the victory.
Not for the victory, but I think they should do a good TT. Movistar normally do a very good... I would expect this Movistar team to actually do a really good TTT.
Yeah.
Apart from Jefferson Cepeda, but like guys like these classic sprinters like Garcia Cortina, rouleurs like Hessman, Romo, bigger GC guy, they should do pretty well. And Movistar normally do well in a TTT. They're just missing Oliveira, who's normally excellent. My dark horse is Red Bull.
Oh, okay. Van Dijken, Sobrero, Fisher Black, Dens. Those are pretty good engines. I see a possibility there, but for me, it's between two teams. It's between Ineos and even with one guy less, Visma as well, because there are still so many engines in that team. Like Van Baarle, Wilco Kelderman, Jorgensen, Kampenaerts, Vingegaard, Tullet, Sepp Kuss, I wouldn't necessarily shout as the biggest time trialist in the world, but like it's between those two teams for me. So I'm saying Ineos first, Visma second.
I think Vine crashed today. I don't know how that will affect his TTT. But yeah, I'm going Ineos. I'm going Ineos, and then I think Movistar, Trek, UAE, Visma will be very close to each other. So we'll see.
How big are the gaps usually with a 22-kilometer time trial? Because they're usually not this long.
The Vuelta TTT in Barcelona last year was much shorter. It was
also in the dark.
It was half the length. It was 12 Ks, and that was an individual time trial. I'm now learning. Let's go back a year.
2023.
2023, we also had a TTT in Barcelona. That was 15 Ks, so 2/3 of this length, and we had...
2022, 23 kilometers.
There you go. In 23, it was 6 seconds separating the top 5, and then 28 seconds separating the top 10.
More importantly, in 2022, the first stage was 23 kilometer team time trial, completely flat, like the one tomorrow. And the gap from first to second was 13 seconds. Visma ahead of Ineos back then. And there were 3 riders within 3 teams within 15 seconds, and then 3 more teams between 30 and 40 seconds behind. So the top 6 was actually, the entire top 10 was within 45 seconds.
45 seconds is pretty big, though.
Yes.
Our Visma team was disgusting, though. It had like
and usually,
beanie.
Go ahead.
Well, it had like that. I think the difference there is they had Gersing, Roglic, Turnison, Dennis, Affini, Harper. It was like there was a big gap from first to second, and then like Ineos and Quickstep were same time. I think because it was a Dutch start, it was in Utrecht. So I think I would be surprised if there was 45 seconds to the 10th team. Maybe I'm underrating it.
Well, I expect that time gap.
If Vingegaard's if he's on a minute already.
What, after tomorrow? I don't expect him to lose a. I don't expect
No,
Visma to be
be
the
a
team on
minute
45
ahead
seconds.
of be a minute ahead of UA or something.
I'm sorry, but Vingegaard is the favorite for this race. Like, similar position as Pogacar at the Tour de France, where they're the obvious favorite for the race. So for me, beating Vingegaard needs to happen by Vingegaard having a bad day somewhere.
True. We'll see also with the TTT, there'll be more time gaps for stage 6. But yeah, there are picks. Ineos look like the favorites. They just won today. Let's see if they can go back to back. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And we will cover transfers, but on a separate, maybe a rest day pod. We're not going to do them ad hoc. We'll round them all up so we can speak about them at length in a separate pod. Thanks for listening. Ciao, ciao, ciao.